Most women believe attraction is built by revealing more of themselves. They overshare, over-explain, and overextend, hoping vulnerability will spark desire. But in truth, a man rarely falls for what is handed to him freely. He falls for what he has to seek, interpret, and wrestle with in his own mind. Sometimes the most magnetic woman is not the one who bears her soul, but the one who becomes the reflection in which he sees his own. Imagine this: you're speaking with him, and instead of rushing to prove your worth or meet his approval, you speak less but with precision. Your words do not try to impress, they provoke him to think. You hold his gaze just long enough to make him feel seen, yet not so long that he stops wondering what you're thinking. In this space of subtle restraint, you create a mirror not of your life, but of his deepest self. Jung taught that we project the hidden parts of our psyche onto others, mistaking them for qualities the other person holds. When a woman becomes his psychological mirror, she doesn't simply feed his ego. She reflects his shadow, his unacknowledged dreams, and even his insecurities without judgment. This reflection disarms him. It draws him into a quiet obsession, because suddenly, you're not just a woman in his world, you've become the landscape in which his inner world plays out. It's important to understand, men are not simply drawn to beauty or charm. They are drawn to the rare presence that reveals something dormant within them. When you embody this mirror, you stop chasing his attention and start pulling on the threads of his psyche. Each glance, each pause, each carefully chosen phrase becomes an invitation for him to step deeper into himself and, by extension, closer to you. This is not about manipulation. It's about mastery of yourself and of the dance between your anima and his animus. Your role is not to rescue him or to mold him, but to stand as a clear yet enigmatic presence. He sees in you the qualities he is seeking in himself, though he may never name them. And because the human ego craves self-recognition more than it craves another person, he begins to feel inexplicably tied to you. In moments when he reveals vulnerability, you resist the impulse to rush in with comfort or validation. Instead, you hold the space with quiet strength, letting his words linger in the air. This silence becomes powerful. It tells him you are not desperate to ease his discomfort, but neither are you pushing him away. You are simply there, reflecting his truth back to him without judgment or demand. In a world that constantly tries to fix and mold, this neutrality is intoxicating. Stoic wisdom speaks of remaining unmoved by what is outside your control. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. When you stand rooted in your own value, unaffected by his approval or rejection, he begins to recognize you as something rare, an anchor in a sea of reaction. Your stability draws him in precisely because it offers no easy conquest. And here is where the tension builds. A man who is used to women bending toward him will feel unsettled when you do not. He will search for cracks, moments where your attention falters or your focus wavers toward him. When he finds none, he must confront the truth. His desire is not about you filling a void, but about him trying to resolve the reflection you've shown him. That reflection is his own unfinished self, and it is magnetic beyond reason. In this space, attraction is no longer a game of pursuit and retreat. It becomes a spiral one in which he circles closer and closer, seeking understanding, seeking completion. But the completion is not yours to give, it is his to find. And this is the paradox that binds him to you. He is drawn to you not because you complete him, but because you compel him to complete himself. The woman who masters this art does not fear being misunderstood. She knows that her power is not in explaining who she is, but in allowing him to discover who he is when he is near her. She becomes the catalyst, the quiet force that stirs storms in the soul without ever lifting a finger. And once a man has experienced this reflection, the ordinary loses its flavor to become his psychological mirror. You must first strip away the instinct to perform. Performance is a survival reflex, an attempt to be chosen by playing a role you think he will approve of. But a mirror has no script. It does not twist itself into shapes to be liked. It stands still, allowing reality to be revealed. When you release the compulsion to prove yourself, you create a space where his projections have room to land. This is where the deeper layers of attraction are formed, not in chasing his gaze, but in catching his unconscious off guard. Jung spoke of the shadow as the part of the self we disown, yet secretly long to reclaim. When you listen with your whole presence, without leaping to judgment or praise, he starts to hear things in his own words that he didn't know were there. You are not leading him toward these realizations. You are simply the still surface in which they appear. Men often believe they are pursuing a woman, when in truth they are pursuing the version of themselves they glimpse in her presence. When you reflect his strength without worship and his flaws without scorn, you become the most honest feedback loop he's ever experienced. It feels dangerous to him, because here is a woman who will not inflate his ego nor shrink to protect it. And yet, it also feels safe because your reflection does not lie. This balance is delicate. If you lean too far into coldness, you become a wall. If you lean too far into warmth, you dissolve into the roles he already knows. The art lies in holding both the cool clarity that lets him see himself clearly, and the subtle warmth that tells him you do not fear what you see. It is this paradox that disarms him, the woman who neither flatters nor condemns, but simply reveals. You must understand that his attraction in this state is not purely romantic, it is existential. You stir something older than flirtation. You remind him of his unfulfilled potential, of choices unmade, of the man he could be if only he dared. And because the human psyche is drawn toward integration, he feels pulled toward you as if you hold the missing piece of his inner puzzle. But you never claim to hold it, to only make him aware that it exists. In the presence of such a woman, a man's mind becomes restless. He starts noticing his own patterns, his own moments of smallness. He finds himself wondering what you see when you look at him, what truths you've silently noticed but not voiced. The absence of explanation is maddening, but also addictive. He begins to seek more of your presence, not for entertainment, but for the way it makes him feel both exposed and alive. This is why you must guard your own emotional equilibrium. If you let his intensity shake you, you lose the clarity that makes you magnetic. A mirror clouded with desperation no longer reflects it, distorts. To keep your edge, you must return to yourself again and again, rooting your sense of worth in something no man can give or take. This self-containment is the quiet current that keeps the dynamic alive. Stoic thought aligns here. Control is not about dominating another, but about refusing to be dominated by what lies outside your soul. Epictetus reminded us that no one can disturb your peace unless you grant them the keys. By embodying this principle, you show him something rare, a woman who does not crumble under attention or vanish without it. In a world that teaches men to expect emotional compliance, this stability is electric. The more he circles you, the more he tests. He may push to see if your reflection bends, if your truth changes when he withdraws his approval or amplifies his praise. Each time you remain unshaken, his fascination deepens. He cannot help but respect what he cannot move. And respect, when born from this kind of mystery, is the soil from which lasting attraction grows. When you master this way of being, you cease to compete for his affection. You understand that the chase is not yours to run, it is his to begin and to sustain. You are the constant point, the magnetic axis around which his curiosity spins. And in the quiet between words, in the glances that say more than explanations ever could, you hold the kind of power that no amount of beauty alone can create. A mirror does not choose what it reflects. It simply offers the truth without embellishment. And yet, in the dance of attraction, this truth is never sterile. It is charged. When you hold a man's gaze and let him see himself in it, you are not merely showing him his image. You are awakening his archetypes. His inner warrior stirs when you reflect his strength without neediness. His lover awakens when you reflect his capacity for tenderness. His king rises when you reflect the authority he wields over his own life, not over you. Jung understood that these archetypes live in the collective unconscious, waiting to be summoned. A man who has never met a woman who mirrors these dormant parts of him will feel as though you are both familiar and entirely new. Familiar because you resonate with something ancient in him. New because so few women have the discipline to reflect without trying to control. And once awakened, these archetypes hunger for completion, drawing him deeper into your orbit. But here is where the mastery lies. You do not give him the completion he seeks. That would make you the solution to his identity, which would trap you in the role of caretaker or prize. Instead, you reveal just enough of his own potential to leave him haunted by it. You become the book he cannot finish, the dream he cannot fully recall upon waking. And in this incompleteness, his attraction grows not from satisfaction, but from the ache of wanting more. Many women falter here. They mistake his growing intensity for a cue to reciprocate with confession and disclosure. They drop the mystery, hand him the script, and hope he will treasure the openness. But when you give too much too soon, you collapse the very tension that fuels his curiosity. He will read the last page before he's ready, and the spell will be broken. The power of the mirror is in revealing, not delivering the treasure. To remain in this role requires emotional detachment, but not coldness. Detachment is the ability to see his longing without being consumed by it. You watch the tides of his desire rise and fall, yet you remain the shoreline unchanged, dependable, unmoved by whether the water laps gently or crashes violently. It is this unflinching steadiness that convinces him there is something in you, beyond his reach. And what lies beyond reach is what men pursue with the greatest fervor. This is not about withholding affection or playing games. In fact, it's the opposite. You give him something far more valuable than flattery or indulgence. You give him the gift of seeing himself clearly, without distortion. Few people can tolerate that kind of honesty for long, but those who can will never forget it. They will return to it again and again, like a man returning to a place where he once caught a glimpse of who he might become. The Stoics warned of being ruled by passion, yet they also knew passion could be harnessed when paired with reason. Your presence becomes the training ground where his emotional intensity meets your calm discernment. He feels the pull to conquer you, but senses he must first conquer himself to stand in your presence without faltering. You, meanwhile, are unshaken. Your value is not a prize he wins, but a reality you inhabit. As this dynamic deepens, he will test boundaries in more subtle ways. He may share something personal, watching to see if you cradle it or exploit it. He may provoke you with disagreement, searching for signs of insecurity or the need to defend yourself. Each time you hold your center, you teach him that your worth does not hinge on agreement, approval, or validation. This is disarming to a man who has built his life expecting to control the emotional tempo. And so, the spiral continues, not the frantic chase of early infatuation, but a slow, gravitational pull. He is drawn not to your compliance, but to your refusal to be swallowed by his world. In mirroring him without losing yourself, you create a magnetic paradox. The more he sees himself in you, the more he realizes there is still more of you he does not see. And that is the hook that keeps him circling, always wanting, never fully possessing. In time, he begins to notice the subtle shift in himself when you are near. His words are more deliberate. His posture straightens, not from conscious effort, but from a quiet sense of accountability. This is the unseen alchemy of the mirror. You do not demand he become better. He simply feels compelled to. It is as though your presence calls forth the higher version of himself. And to fall short of it would feel like a betrayal, not to you, but to his own potential. Jung would call this the meeting of the anima and animesta, inner feminine, in him recognizing the sovereignty of the outer feminine before him. You are not an echo of his mother, nor a shadow of past lovers. You are a figure he cannot categorize. This unfamiliarity is both unsettling and intoxicating. It draws him into a deeper search, because what the psyche cannot define, it will obsess over until it can. The mistake many women make is trying to accelerate this process. They see the signs of awakening in him and think they can guide it to completion. But the moment you attempt to manage his transformation, you shift from mirror to mentor, and the balance changes. A mentor can be respected, but rarely inspires. The same kind of primal, magnetic pull. The mirror's power lies in its refusal to shape what it reflects. It lets the subject wrestle with his own image. This is where restraint becomes your sharpest tool. In conversation, you listen without rushing to fill the silence. In conflict, you speak with precision, knowing that too many words dissolve their weight. In affection, you give enough to warm him, but never so much that he forgets to reach for it. He must feel that your presence is an earned experience, not a constant guarantee. In that subtle scarcity lies its value. There will be moments when he tries to unsettle you, an unreturned call, a deliberately delayed reply, a teasing remark designed to provoke. These are not just games. They are his way of measuring the depth of your self-possession. If you react with fear or grasping, the mirror shatters. But if you remain composed, letting the moment pass as though it touched nothing essential in you, you reinforce the truth he is beginning to sense. You are not his to win or lose. You are his to meet as an equal if he dares. And so he begins to invest not in chasing your approval, but in becoming the man who can stand before you without shrinking. This is the spiral of attraction at its most potent. It is no longer about romance alone, but about his evolution. You have become a milestone in his journey, a living reminder of what is possible when he faces his reflection without turning away. In this sense, his attraction to you is inseparable from his attraction to the man he becomes when he is with you. The Stoics spoke often of virtue as the only true wealth. Your value in his eyes grows because it is rooted in this principle. You are not offering novelty, but integrity. You are not bending to match his mood. You are holding to a standard that he must rise to meet. This unyielding alignment with your own worth creates a gravitational field around you, one that cannot be faked or forced. He may not know the language for it, but he feels it all the same. Over time, others will notice the shift in him. His friends may remark that he seems more thoughtful, more deliberate, more alive. He may credit you openly, or he may keep the influence quiet, afraid that naming it will break the spell. Either way, the transformation speaks for itself. You have not changed him. You have shown him the parts of himself he had been too afraid or too distracted to meet. And now that he's met them, he cannot unknow them. The truth is, the mirror changes both the one who looks and the one who holds it. You, too, become sharper, more aware, more deliberate. In choosing to remain centered, you train yourself to detach from outcomes, to find stability in your own reflection first. And that, above all, is why this dynamic is so powerful, because at its core, it is not about control, but about liberation, for both. There comes a point in the spiral where he is no longer just reacting to you. He is studying you, not in the surface way a man admires beauty, but in the deeper way a seeker studies a symbol. Every word you choose, every glance you hold, every boundary you maintain becomes a piece of the puzzle he is trying to solve. And the more he tries to solve it, the more he realizes that the solution lies not in unlocking you, but in unlocking himself. You see, a mirror does not tell the viewer what it sees, it compels him to see it for himself. This is why your restraint is more powerful than persuasion. If you were to tell him exactly what he needs to know about himself, his ego would resist it. But when he discovers it in his own reflection, your presence, he cannot deny it without denying his own eyes. And so he returns, again and again, to the place where his clarity lives. In Jungian terms, you have become the carrier of his anima, the embodiment of the idealized feminine through which he encounters his unconscious. This makes his attraction to you layered, complex, and enduring. You are not merely a person to him, you are a threshold. Crossing it feels like stepping into the realm of what he could be, and that is far more intoxicating than any fleeting spark of lust. But here is where the danger lies for both of you. If you mistake his intensity for permanence, you may start to bend toward it, abandoning the neutrality that made you magnetic in the first place. If he mistakes his growth for possession, he may try to hold you too tightly, smothering the space that allowed the reflection to appear. The mirror works only when there is distance, not absence, but space enough for mystery to breathe. Maintaining this space requires a quiet courage. You must be willing to let him wrestle with his own discomfort, to watch him pull away at times without chasing. You must be able to resist the impulse to make things safe by over-expressing yourself. Every time you hold that space, you remind him that you are not the source of his worth, you are simply the witness to it. And a man will always cherish what does not try to control him, while still holding him accountable. This accountability is subtle but potent. It is in the way you notice when his words do not align with his actions, without accusing. It is in the way you respond to inconsistency, not with anger, but with a pause that lets him feel the weight of his own dissonance. It is in the way you reflect his moments of greatness without overstating them, so he understands they are his to sustain, not yours to manufacture. In this dynamic, attraction becomes self-perpetuating. The more he sees himself clearly in your presence, the more he wants to be near you. The more he wants to be near you, the more opportunities he has to see himself. And yet, the more he sees himself, the more he understands that to truly keep your attention, he must keep evolving. You become both the mirror and the muse, never asking him to change, but inspiring change all the same. The Stoics would say that you are the rock against which the waves crash, not because you are unmoved, but because you know your own shape. You can absorb the force of his emotion without losing form. You can hold his storms without drowning in them. And because of this, he begins to associate you with clarity, steadiness, and truth, qualities rare enough in this world to inspire lifelong loyalty. By now, he is no longer simply attracted to you in the conventional sense. You have become a part of his self-story, a figure who symbolizes the man he was before and the man he is becoming. To lose you would feel like losing a chapter of his own evolution. This realization deepens his commitment, not through obligation, but through reverence. And reverence, when earned rather than demanded, binds far more strongly than desire alone. Still, you must remember, the mirror's purpose is not to keep him, but to keep him seeing. Whether he stays or goes, the reflection you've offered remains with him. And the woman who knows this does not cling to the outcome, because she understands that her value is not in being the destination, but in being the awakening. Eventually, the spiral reaches a quiet depth where words are no longer the main exchange. It is in the pauses, the glances, the subtle shift of his breath when he's near you. The dynamic has moved past the surface games of charm and pursuit. Now, it is a study of presence. You are not trying to hold him. He is holding himself differently because of the way you exist beside him. This is when attraction begins to feel less like a chase and more like a gravity that neither of you needs to explain. The ancient Stoics would say that a person is most powerful when they are ruled not by passion, but by principle. You have become living proof of that truth. Your principles, self-respect, emotional equilibrium, and an unwillingness to barter your worth are what sustain the magnetic field between you. He senses that even in the deepest intimacy, you would never lose yourself to him. That awareness keeps the space alive, the mystery breathing, and his respect unshaken. Here lies the paradox. The more deeply he connects with you, the more he realizes he cannot own you. And instead of discouraging him, it sharpens his fascination. You are like a flame he can approach, but never contain, warm enough to draw him closer, powerful enough to demand he keep his hands steady. He learns that your presence is not a possession, it is a privilege. And privileges must be earned, not claimed. Jung might say that, at this stage, you have helped him integrate pieces of his shadow without ever making it about you. The qualities he once denied or projected are now visible to him, alive in his own behavior. He may become more patient, more grounded, more intentional, not because you demanded it, but because your reflection left no room for self-deception. This is the power of the psychological mirror. It changes people without a single lecture. But here is the unspoken truth. You are not doing this for him. You are doing it because this is who you have become. The mirror works only when it is clear and self-owned, not shaped to manipulate or to win affection. Your role is not to lure a man into growth. Your role is to remain in your own alignment so fiercely that those who come near you must rise or fall away. This keeps the dynamic pure, free from the hunger for control that destroys trust. And trust here is not about promises, it is about presence. He trusts that you will remain yourself, no matter the state of his mood, his desire, or his devotion. That constancy is a rare gift in a world full of emotional volatility. It allows him to relax into the connection while simultaneously keeping him alert, because stability in you does not mean predictability in outcome. He knows you could walk away, not out of anger, but out of truth. Then that possibility keeps him present. At this stage, the attraction often becomes quiet, but more potent. There are fewer grand gestures, fewer tests. Instead, there is a steady current that runs beneath every interaction. He begins to realize that this is not a passing infatuation, it is an anchoring. You have become a reference point for him, a compass he checks against without even realizing it. This is why men who meet such women often measure other relationships by the clarity they once felt in her presence. You, meanwhile, remain untethered. Not in the sense of emotional detachment that denies closeness, but in the sense that you never forget your first loyalty is to yourself. Whether he chooses to stay in your orbit or drift away, you remain whole. This is the essence of both Jungian individuation and Stoic self-mastery, the refusal to place your identity in someone else's hands. And so, the final layer of the mirror's power emerges. It frees you from the fear of loss, because you know that the reflection you offer is yours to keep, not his to steal. You can give it to the next person, the next encounter, the next chapter of your life. The man who stays will do so because he chooses, not because you've trapped him. And the man who leaves will carry the image you reflected into every room he walks into after you. The woman who understands this becomes unshakable. She does not chase because she does not need to. She does not play small because she does not fear being too much. And she does not bend her reflection to please because she knows the man who is meant for her will meet her as she is, or not at all. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.